Concentric started as a research project. It was funded by the Iowa Arts Council, and I wanted to take a deep dive into different cultures in eastern Iowa and how they use sound to induce meditative or transcendent states. The first group I spoke with was the Meskwaki tribe, and they told me about their different practices of using repetitive beats and then also repeating entire songs over and over. And there's something special about that repetition that helps create a trance state. And as they would get deeper and deeper into these deep states of consciousness, they would have experiences of losing a sense of ego, like an ego dissolution, and then also being able to have these experiences of transcending time. They would have sort of dreams or visions where they see ancestors or see descendants. They would have these periods of silence in between the songs that allowed time for the sound to absorb and for them to move into more contemplative or deeper states. The second person I spoke with was Dr. Fred Travis at the Maharishi International University, and we spoke about transcendental meditation as well as Vedic culture, which was a predecessor to transcendental meditation. I started to learn about the concept of a field of consciousness where all forms arise, and the consciousness interacts with itself and starts to reverberate and move, and from that, these forms start to emerge. And this ties into some ideas coming from Vedic and later Hindu, this idea that all forms have a creation, a sustain, and then a release. And that lines up directly with my experience with electronic music and synthesizers, where the amplitude envelope on a synthesizer has an attack, a sustain, and a release. And that's how the sound emerges, plays for a period of time, and then releases back into silence. The third area of study was looking at different Christian cultures in eastern Iowa. And something I really appreciate about Pentecostal is there's an incredible amount of passion. So their experience of God is one that is ecstatic and excited. And my experience of going to church as a kid was one that did not have passion. It was, especially as a kid, it was a bit boring. So part of my context for this project is looking at what was my experience growing up with spiritual or religious experiences. And it was quite void until I found a rave and techno culture in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Raves were really special in that everyone was focused towards the speakers, and it was a type of worship of sound. It was really, what is this physical presence coming out of the speakers, moving through the air, hitting your body. It creates this rhythm which then instructs everyone's bodies to move and dance at the same time. And so as I'm looking at these different cultures, as I'm looking at Meskwaki culture and Vedic culture and Christian culture, they all have their ways of using sound to help people who are in that service or in that ceremony, and they move into a state of what are some of the fundamental experiences of spirit that come out of these rituals, of these really special times where we gather, whether it's on Sundays or in rave culture, Friday and Saturday nights. We keep coming together in these weekly rituals because it does serve a need. There's a need to have an experience of transcendence. There's a need to relax into the deeper states of our consciousness where our problems aren't as pressing, creative solutions come up, different emotional struggles we're going through can feel like they melt away in the course of the evening or of the service. These are the experiences that I've been studying, like what are the fundamentals of how these experiences arise and how these experiences become a vehicle for our consciousness to have a transformative experience which helps bring us joy or peace. For the performance, we invite people into the Black Box Theater at CSPS. Part of it was a performance and part of it was presenting the research. And what we're able to do was talk about a concept and then immediately play the sound that was the sonification of that concept. So back and forth, this is the idea of the field of consciousness, this is how I sonified that concept. This is the idea of consciousness reverberating off itself and becoming form, and this is what the sound version of that is. And what I was doing for this was the heartbeat sound. So it's a clear beat, there's a kick, and then there's a space, it's this identifiable form. And for the duration of our performance, you have this anchor, and that's form. Once the ideas were described, we went into a full performance where we go through those steps, and everyone is invited to lie down, sit down, to go on this experience with me. So as I'm meditating and going into deeper states, that invites the rest of the people to go into these deeper states. I was wearing an EEG headband, so I was taking my live brain waves and also my heartbeat, and that helps shape different elements in the soundscape. And the live heartbeat and the pulsing of the lights is a direct connection to what my heart is doing in that moment. When I facilitate these types of experiences, people often go into hypnotic states or have these creative or emotional breakthroughs. Some people lose their sense of time. They don't know if it was 5 minutes or 50 minutes. Some people forget where in the room they were, so they have this spatial dissolution. Many people have found that their own heartbeats start to sync up with the heartbeat sound that's coming out of the speakers. So at various times during the performance, my heartbeat and their heartbeats are syncing up as a group phenomenon. For this project, I invited in a collaborator from New York University, Cece Zhang.
My name is Cece Zhang. I am a left field experimental musician from Beijing, China originally, but now I'm living in New York City.
I was interested in working with Cece because of her own work as an experimental musician, and she was also researching how sound can help induce transcendent states.
What actually causes a trance state? Is it just the sonic structure, the rhythmic repetition, timbre, harmonics? Or could it also be our own imagination and cognition of the alien, the other, a fantasy that we project into certain music, bodies, geographics? So I realized that many listeners, they enter trance-like states not only because of what the music does structurally, but also because of the cultural frameworks through which they interpret it.
In order to create the sound, we are using a Muse EEG headband. So some of the sounds, particularly the ocean wave sounds, are generated by the oscillations in my brain, my live brain waves. And then the headband also has a heartbeat sensing PPG sensor. And so as my heart beats, the tempo is calculated and then sets the BPM for the entire project. So the heartbeat sound that you're hearing is a direct connection to my live heartbeat. In addition to the heartbeat sound, I've got various drone synthesizer sounds to symbolize the field of consciousness. I've got various white noise wave sounds to show how form emerges and it dissolves. I'm also using various synthesizers to bring in tones and resonance as we get deeper into the sound experience. I'll be using a little bit of distortion to warm up some of the signal, and then this really large, beautiful reverb, which helps it move into this space that feels otherworldly or transcendent. My goal for the project was to see if there are these common elements that go across different cultures. You know, the way that we use sounds, the way that we compose, the way that we bring people together into spaces to have these reflective or transcendent experiences. And what I found is there is this really beautiful through line from Meskwaki, from Vedic, Christian, even in the electronic music rave scene that I grew up in. There's a resonance through all of these cultures that reveals our shared humanity. For example, a kick drum in a techno track, you repeat that kick drum and you've got a measure, that measure becomes a section, that section becomes a song, You mix a bunch of songs together and you get a full DJ set. You get 6, 7, 8 DJs to mix in course of a night, and you have a rave. And then you have these peaks and valleys of raves happening on the weekends. Sometimes they happen more in the summertime or around New Year's Eve. And you get these oscillations from a single kick drum to these surges of an entire scene. And you've got these concentric circles of oscillations. And that oscillation can be as fast as a heartbeat or as slow as a surge of an entire music scene hitting its peak and then losing favor over time. And so that image of a circle within a circle within a circle became the symbol for this project.